Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we're at property address 1098 Northeast Catherine Street here in Hillsboro. We're located up on the rooftop going through a 3-inch ABS vent. We're going to check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. We currently have water running. We'll zero the camera counter out right at the base of the vent. We got to clean some cobwebs off the camera first. And we'll zero out right here at the bottom of the vent. This will be referred to as the point of access. Now, I highly recommend getting a new cleanout out front. It looks like this line has been scoped at some point in the past. Whoever was out here beat the living crap out of the cleanout. The top of it's been torn off. The flange has some cracks in it. It's ready for a new one. It should be a fairly easy fix. Usually you just got to dig down a little bit, chop the top of it off, and go a new cleanout on top of it. Not too big of a deal, but I would recommend getting that fixed, because right now the open hole in the cap is allowing dirt and all kinds of junk to fall down inside the cleanout. We left that exposed to the left of the doorway. Pretty easy to see. Well, the cleanout I remember seeing out there was cast iron, so it's possible that cleanout has actually been abandoned. I figure we'd be running into cast iron pipe at this point. It just switched there to 4-inch 3034 PVC pipe. I didn't even attempt to take the cap off of there just because I know that wailing on it any further, which is what's required to get that cap off of there at this point, would likely break that flange apart. But it might be totally abandoned at this point because it's kind of odd to have a new line like this and have an old cast iron cleanout. So we'll keep our eye out for any tie-ins on the way back in, make sure that, try and figure out if that is still actively used or not. Just transition back to standard white PVC pipe. And now looks like we're going into concrete pipe here. We do have some standing water in the line. We'll try and take a look at that on the way back out. And here at about 107 feet, we have reached the main lateral connection. We're going to let the line drain out now before reeling the camera back in so we can have a good look at everything. We'll make sure the line's totally drained out so we can have a look at that spot where there's some standing water. Other than that one area, the rest of the line here looks like it's draining quite nicely. We do have some original concrete pipe in the ground, so we'll try and get a good look at how we got aggregate rock showing through and stuff like that, but for the most part it looks like it's doing its job other than maybe one particular section. I located the camera head successfully out the main lateral on Catherine Street. It ties right into the manhole cover that's in the middle of the little cul-de-sac out here in the road. Alright, line's pretty much all drained out at this point here. I pulled back just a little bit from the connection there to the main. You can see the amount of aggregate rock that's starting to show through there. We have 3/4 of the rock that's exposed here. So that's the issue there. Even if the pipe walls are still sealed off to the ground, it's a very rough surface for debris to try and flow across. So that's the concern. It also indicates that the pipe walls are starting to thin in those areas. Doesn't mean it won't function, but it's certainly not going to function properly. And if you can imagine, you have all these little valleys in between the rock there. So let's say with a toilet flush or a sink running, you have a 1/4 inch tall flow in a perfectly smooth pipe. When you have aggregate like this, there's places for the water to dissipate out into, and so that 1/4 inch of water then becomes a 1/16 of an inch, and so you have that much less water carrying debris, coupled with the roughness of the pipe there, can cause stuff to hang up in the line. So for that reason, I would recommend doing a pipe liner on this and updating the concrete section. Yeah, it doesn't mean it won't function, but I would recommend that. It's getting to that point where you don't want to wait forever for it to get worse, because if you let the walls thin out too much, you can end up with some other issues that you can't repair trenchlessly. But we still have this belly here to look at. We'll see if that's even an option. If you do a pipe liner on a line with a belly, you're going to retain that belly. It looks like the water dissipates out here at about 70, we're going to call it 72 feet, we're just a couple inches shy of that. And where I typically start to see toilet paper collecting lines is once you have at least 5 feet of pipe with at least 1 inch of standing water static with no water running at all. It's a very, very short little belly there. And that belly is not bad enough that I wouldn't do a pipe liner on it. It's only 2 feet long, and at its worst point right here, the water level isn't even up to the top of the camera lens. We're sitting just above a 1/2 of an inch of standing water for only about 2 feet of pipe. So anyway, that would not be a reason for me to not do a pipe liner, which is a trenchless repair. You don't have to dig anything up. But with the amount of aggregate rock that's starting to show through there in the concrete, in many spots you've got 3/4 of the rock exposed, or the little pebbles and stuff in there. And those things can start breaking loose and causing problems all on their own. But I would recommend doing an epoxy liner to update that concrete section there. Alright, so this is indeed that original clean out that's out there. They've utilized that for whatever reason, I don't understand. But that's that cast iron clean out that's all beat up out there is still being in use, so I do recommend that be fixed. And it bells out here just before the PVC to 4-inch pipe. Anyway, there's obviously a plastic stub there. You could glue a new clean out right onto it. There's no cast iron pipe there at all, just the clean out cap. We're going to go to really camera out of the line here. The line is functioning at this time. It's not functioning properly due to the aggregate rock that's showing through. That is hindering flow there to a certain extent. And it's just at that point where, in my opinion, I would recommend doing an epoxy liner and updating it so that it's good to go for a lot longer. Obviously, the first half of the line has been updated for a reason. There may have been tree roots or something like that, but it would have been concrete all the way back to the house as well. So it's just at that point where I would recommend getting it updated before it. If you wait too long, that doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight. It could be another 5 years, maybe even longer. It's really hard to gauge that kind of stuff. It all is based on how much the line is being used. But if it gets too bad and you have too much aggregate rock showing through, or pipe walls start to kind of collapse in on themselves, you'll lose the ability to do an epoxy liner. So this would be the ideal time to do that. But anyway, the line is functioning out this time, although draining slowly due to the aggregate rock there. I recommend the update to the concrete section. Aside from that, the first half of the line, all the plastic looks great. And throughout the concrete line, the reason it's a good candidate for an epoxy liner is the concrete drains out very nicely. There's that little tiny 2-foot belly right at the start, but that is rink-a-dink. That'd be no reason at all to not do an epoxy liner. That's simply not worth digging up and going that route if you can avoid it. So recommend that be updated, and I recommend a rescope after any repair work is done to make sure it was done correctly.